My last name is Lee, Bruce Lee. I was born in San Francisco in 1940. I'm 24 right now.
And you worked in motion pictures in Hong Kong?
Yes, since I was around 6 years old.
And when did you leave Hong Kong?
1959, when I was 18.
I see.
He stood as an action star, a pop culture phenomenon, and a martial arts innovator who was just steps away from unmatched global fame. Bruce Lee was not simply a skilled fighter on screen. He became a worldwide influence who transformed action films and reshaped how strength, discipline, and confidence were portrayed. At the height of his rising success, his sudden death stunned audiences across the globe. Decades later, uncertainty still surrounds what truly caused his passing. As more information continues to surface, long-held assumptions are being quietly questioned. To grasp the mystery surrounding Bruce Lee's final days, it is important to understand his beginnings. Bruce Lee was born on November 27, 1940, in San Francisco's Chinatown during a period of worldwide instability. His parents, Lee Hoi Chuen and Grace Ho, were visiting the United States as part of a Cantonese opera tour, traveling frequently to perform. In Chinese astrology, Bruce was born during both the hour and the year of the dragon, a symbol often associated with strength and destiny. This belief shaped how his identity was viewed from an early age. It later influenced his Chinese stage name, Li Xiulong, meaning Little Dragon. His birth name was Li Junfan, which translates to returning again, reflecting his mother's hope that he would one day make his way back to America. Just 4 months after he was born, the family returned to Hong Kong in April 1941. At that moment, no one could predict how quickly life would change. In December of that same year, Japan launched a devastating invasion of Hong Kong, beginning years of occupation during World War II. Bruce spent his earliest childhood surrounded by instability and constant danger. Hong Kong during the occupation was unforgiving. Food shortages were common, violence lingered in the streets, and fear shaped daily life. These conditions left a lasting impact on Bruce. While children elsewhere lived freely, he learned awareness and toughness in a city under military control. Even during this period, Bruce made his first on-screen appearance as an infant in the film Golden Gate Girl, briefly seen in the background. As he grew older, his comfort in front of the camera became undeniable. At 9 years old, he starred in The Kid, a film inspired by a well-known local comic character. Acting soon became second nature. By the age of 18, Bruce Lee had already appeared in more than 20 films. While most teenagers were still unsure about their future, Bruce had years of professional experience. Still, early fame did not shield him from growing struggles at home or from the pressures building around him. In the early 1950s, trouble began to build inside the Lee household. Bruce Lee's father fell into opium addiction, creating tension, financial strain, and emotional instability at home. That pressure spilled into Bruce's daily life. Around the same time, he began struggling in school, both academically and behaviorally. He first attended Tak Soon School near their home in Kowloon, but his grades and conduct continued to slide. Because of these issues, Bruce was transferred to St. Francis Xavier's College in 1956. He was sharp, fast-thinking, and full of restless energy, but rules were not his strong suit. His defiant streak often put him at odds with authority, and discipline was something he resisted rather than embraced. That clash would soon push him toward a path that reshaped his entire future. By the age of 13, Bruce Lee's life was already packed with conflict, aggression, and raw intensity. In 1953, a friend named William Chung introduced him to the world of Wing Chun and to its legendary master, Ip Man. Bruce had been getting into frequent street fights, and Chung believed structured training could give him control, focus, and direction. Ip Man was widely respected in Hong Kong, known for both his skill and his calm, thoughtful approach to teaching. Bruce's first attempt to join Ip Man's school did not go smoothly. He was rejected, not because of lack of talent or bad attitude, but because of his family background. His mother, Grace Ho, was of mixed Chinese and European ancestry. In the traditional martial arts world at the time, that detail mattered. Many masters believed their knowledge should only be passed to students of full Chinese heritage, and Bruce was viewed as an outsider. William Chung refused to let that decision stand. He spoke on Bruce's behalf and pushed Ip Man to reconsider. Eventually, Ip Man allowed Bruce to train, though the resistance did not disappear. Several students avoided working with him and kept their distance because of his background. As a result, Bruce often trained privately with Ip Man and a small circle of fighters, including William Chung and Wang Shun Lung. From day one, Bruce treated martial arts with serious intent. This was not casual training. It became an obsession. He practiced constantly, studied movements relentlessly, and pushed his limits daily, even as he continued to clash with others in real street fights outside the school. In 1958, Bruce Lee became involved in a violent rooftop confrontation with students from a rival martial arts school in Hong Kong. The clash escalated fast. One of the boys struck first, and Bruce responded with overwhelming force, knocking out one of his opponent's teeth. The injured student's family reported the incident to the police, pushing Bruce dangerously close to serious legal consequences. The situation forced immediate action at home. Bruce's mother, Grace Ho, went to the police station and accepted responsibility for what had happened. She chose not to tell Bruce's father, Lee Hoi Chuen, about the incident, but she reached a firm conclusion. Bruce needed to leave Hong Kong before his growing reputation pulled him deeper into trouble.
Tell me now the difference between Jiu-Jitsu, which is long and bow, and Kung Fu, which is very quick if you have an opponent.
All right, for instance, you will read it in a book, in a magazine and everything, that when somebody grabs you, you will first do this, and then this, and then thousands of steps before you do a single thing. Of course, this kind of magazine would teach you to be feared by your enemies and admired by your friends and everything. But in Kung Fu, it always involves a very fast motion. Like, for instance, a guy grabbing your hand. It's not the idea to do so many steps. Step him right on the instep. He'll let go. Well, Kung Fu can be practiced alone or with a partner. Practicing alone, they involve forms. Some imitate a crane, a monkey, a praying mantis. This is a crane form. Start off. They have the tiger that start like a tiger, using claw to claw the face, or the beak of the crane to the eyes move. This is some of the movement involved.
That same year, Bruce also began making headlines for entirely different reasons. In 1958, he entered the Hong Kong Interschool Boxing Championship and faced the defending champion, Gary Elms. Bruce won the match by knockout in the final round, proving he could dominate in Western-style boxing, not just traditional martial arts. The victory added another layer to his growing legend. Around that same period, Bruce claimed the Crown Colony Cha-Cha Dancing Championship. It was an unexpected achievement that highlighted his versatility. Bruce was not defined by fighting alone. He possessed rare physical coordination, sharp reflexes, and an instinctive sense of rhythm. His timing and body control gave him an edge in nearly everything he pursued. Despite these accomplishments, fear followed him at home. After the rooftop fight, Bruce's parents worried that his path was narrowing fast. They believed he could either end up behind bars or attract dangerous attention from the wrong people. With those risks looming, they made a difficult choice. At 18 years old, Bruce was sent back to the United States, the country where he was born. Bruce initially stayed with his older sister, Agnes Lee, in San Francisco. Not long after, he relocated to Seattle, stepping into a completely different world. When Bruce Lee arrived in America in 1959, he was still only 18, leaving behind the chaos of Hong Kong. What awaited him would shape his identity, drive him to challenge tradition, and set the foundation for a new beginning. Bruce Lee initially remained in San Francisco with his older sister Agnes Lee, but that arrangement did not last long. He soon relocated to Seattle, Washington, where he began rebuilding his life from nothing. In Seattle, Bruce enrolled at Edison Technical School to complete his high school education while adjusting to a completely new environment. To support himself, Bruce worked as a live-in waiter at the home and restaurant of Ruby Chow, a close family friend. His routine was demanding. He worked long hours to earn his place there and studied whenever time allowed, driven by the need to create stability for himself. Even with these responsibilities, Bruce refused to put aside his deeper passion. During his limited free time, Bruce began teaching martial arts. He developed his own approach, which he called Jun Fan Gung Fu, a personal interpretation of the Wing Chun system he had learned in Hong Kong. While rooted in traditional Chinese martial arts, his method already showed signs of change. Bruce focused on efficiency, adaptability, and techniques that held up in real-world situations rather than rigid tradition. His first student was Jesse Glover, an American judo practitioner who quickly recognized Bruce's speed, accuracy, and confidence. Word spread, and more students began seeking him out. What set Bruce's classes apart was not just his skill, but his mindset. At a time when many martial arts schools refused students based on race or background, Bruce took a different path. Bruce taught anyone willing to train seriously. His students came from Black, White, Asian, and Latino communities. Background did not matter to him. Commitment did. This open approach was uncommon in the early 1960s and reflected his growing belief that martial arts should not belong to a single group or culture. In 1961, Bruce enrolled at the University of Washington. He formally studied drama, seeing it as a useful foundation for communication and expression. However, philosophy had the greatest influence on his thinking. He studied both Eastern and Western ideas, constantly testing them against his training and daily life. Money was tight. Bruce lived in a small rented room, washed dishes to get by, and continued refining his martial art, driven by purpose rather than comfort. As time passed, Bruce Lee built friendships across a wide range of social circles, including people from some of Seattle's more affluent families. His presence was hard to ignore. He carried himself with confidence, intensity, and a deep sense of purpose that showed in everything he pursued. By 1964, Bruce was ready for a major leap forward in visibility. That year, he was invited to demonstrate his abilities at the Long Beach International Karate Championships in California. The event drew top martial artists from across the country and carried serious prestige. Bruce understood the opportunity and used the stage to separate himself from everyone else in the room. He stunned the audience by performing 2-finger push-ups, lifting his entire body using only his thumb and index finger. He followed that with his 1-inch punch, a short-range strike that sent a man backward with almost no visible preparation.
There are various kinds of strike. It depends on where you hit and what weapon you will be using. There is the finger jab, there is the punch, there is the back fist and then low. Of course, then they use leg, straight at the groin, or come up. Or, if I can back up a little bit, they start back from here and then come back.
All right.
It's kind of worried.
The display left spectators questioning what they thought was physically possible. Skill alone, however, was not what pushed Bruce into controversy. What unfolded next placed him at the center of one of the most debated confrontations in martial arts history. By the early 1960s, Bruce Lee was no longer an unknown instructor. He had opened multiple schools, gathered a diverse group of students, and openly challenged long-standing traditions. One of his most disputed decisions was his refusal to limit training based on race. Within traditional Chinese martial arts circles, many believed kung fu knowledge should remain exclusive to Chinese practitioners. Bruce rejected that belief outright. To him, martial arts had no racial boundary and no cultural gatekeepers. This clash of values did more than create discomfort. It triggered serious backlash that followed Bruce for years. According to his wife, Linda Lee, influential figures within the Chinese martial arts community in San Francisco were deeply unhappy with his approach. They believed Bruce was violating tradition and revealing knowledge that, in their view, should never be shared outside their community. When Bruce Lee refused to stop teaching students who were not Chinese, the situation reached a breaking point. A formal challenge was issued. Wong Jack Man, a young martial artist from China who had recently arrived in the United States, was selected to face Bruce and settle the dispute. The fight took place in 1964 at Bruce's school in Oakland, away from the public eye. No cameras were present, and only a small group of witnesses were allowed inside. From that moment forward, what truly happened became heavily debated. Everyone who attended recalled the fight differently, and those conflicting accounts shaped the controversy that followed. Linda Lee later stated that the fight lasted only around 3 minutes. According to her version, Bruce moved fast and attacked aggressively from the start. She believed Wong was caught off guard by Bruce's speed and unconventional approach, struggled to respond, and eventually stopped fighting. In her view, Bruce won clearly. However, she also explained that Bruce was deeply frustrated afterward, not because he lost, but because the fight did not end as quickly as he expected. To Bruce, taking longer than planned meant his technique lacked efficiency, and that realization bothered him more than the outcome itself. Other witnesses remembered something very different. One of them was William Chen, a respected martial artist who was present that day. Chen claimed the fight dragged on for 20 to 25 minutes and never produced a decisive winner. He believed Bruce had difficulty landing clean, powerful strikes and said Wong deliberately held back some of his strongest kicks out of restraint. From Chen's perspective, the match ended without a clear result. Wong Jack Man also shared his own account. He stated that Bruce initiated the fight under the appearance of a handshake before launching into an immediate attack. Wong described Bruce's approach as reckless and overly aggressive, focused more on overwhelming force than technical exchange. He claimed he chose not to use full power because he did not want to seriously injure Bruce. According to Wong, Bruce became visibly exhausted during the fight. He said the match ended not because Wong surrendered, but because Bruce no longer had the stamina to continue. With no footage and only conflicting testimonies, the Oakland fight remains one of the most disputed moments in martial arts history. Bruce Lee rarely spoke publicly about the Oakland fight. He never gave detailed interviews about it and chose not to respond when Wong Jack Man later issued a public challenge for a rematch in a San Francisco newspaper. Wong claimed he wanted to restore his reputation after hearing people say he had been defeated badly. Bruce did not engage. Some observers believe his silence was a deliberate choice to avoid public spectacle. Others have argued that Bruce simply saw no benefit in revisiting the confrontation. Regardless of the reason, a second fight never happened, and the question of who truly won remains unresolved. What is clear is that the experience had a deep effect on Bruce and altered his thinking about combat. After the fight, Bruce began questioning the limitations of traditional martial arts systems. In his view, many styles relied too heavily on fixed movements, rigid rules, and rehearsed patterns that failed under real pressure. Although he had been trained in Wing Chun, he now believed that committing to a single system was restricting his growth. Bruce started exploring other disciplines with intense focus. He studied Western boxing, fencing footwork, wrestling, and additional fighting methods, breaking them down piece by piece. His goal was not to collect techniques, but to identify what worked in live situations. He wanted freedom over form and efficiency over tradition. This shift marked the foundation of his personal fighting philosophy, which he would later call Jeet Kune Do. It was not designed as a rigid style, but as a constantly evolving approach shaped by experience and practicality. Years later, Hollywood attempted to dramatize the Oakland fight in the film Birth of the Dragon. The movie took heavy creative liberties, portraying Bruce and Wong as equals who eventually unite against a larger threat. That version strayed far from reality. The real confrontation was never about friendship or heroic storytelling. It represented a clash between two opposing mindsets. Wong Jack Man stood for preservation and structure, while Bruce Lee pushed for adaptation and personal freedom. That philosophical divide would define Bruce's legacy moving forward. On July 20th, 1973, a new and far darker chapter began when Bruce Lee entered the Hong Kong apartment of a young actress named Betty Ting Pei. Bruce Lee was at the Hong Kong apartment to discuss the script for his upcoming film Game of Death, a project he was preparing to complete. Earlier that day, producer Raymond Chow had also been present. Those who saw Bruce described him as calm, focused, and in good physical condition, with no visible signs of distress. Later that afternoon, Bruce began complaining of a headache. Betty Ting Pei attempted to help by giving him a pain medication known as Iquagesic, which contained aspirin and a tranquilizer. After taking the pill, Bruce said he needed to rest. He went into Betty's bedroom and lay down. He never regained consciousness. The news that followed stunned the world. Bruce Lee, widely regarded as one of the most physically conditioned individuals of his time, was pronounced dead at only 32 years old. The loss alone was devastating, but the circumstances surrounding his death quickly intensified public reaction. Bruce did not pass away at his own home, nor was he with his wife and children. At the time, he was still married to Linda Lee. The fact that his death occurred inside the apartment of a young actress ignited immediate controversy. Newspapers and magazines shifted their focus beyond the tragedy itself and toward the setting and company involved. Speculation spread rapidly. Questions about Bruce's relationship with Betty Ting Pei dominated headlines. The situation fueled ongoing rumors that refused to fade, turning the event into a media storm that lasted for years. Betty became the center of suspicion, with many people openly doubting the official explanation of events. The pressure on her was severe. Rumors grew increasingly harsh, often crossing into personal attacks. Betty maintained that she and Bruce shared a professional friendship and that nothing improper occurred. She consistently stated that they were working together and that their relationship was based on mutual respect. Betty explained that she first met Bruce Lee in 1972 through producer Raymond Chow. She also stated that she had met Linda Lee, reinforcing her claim that there was no secrecy surrounding her connection to Bruce. Despite her explanations, public doubt and speculation continued long after his death. During a later group meeting, Betty Ting Pei acknowledged that she and Bruce Lee had spent time together, but firmly denied any romantic relationship. Despite her statement, public opinion turned sharply against her. Media coverage became relentless, and she was subjected to constant scrutiny and judgment. Some of the most harmful rumors suggested that Bruce's death was connected to an inappropriate relationship, even though no evidence supported those claims. These accusations spread quickly and settled into public memory, lingering for decades. Betty consistently rejected the rumors in interviews, explaining that the narrative was untrue and deeply unjust to both her and Bruce. The speculation did not fade with time. Instead, it followed her through much of her life, shaping how the public viewed her no matter what she said. In later appearances, Betty described the emotional toll the rumors took on her well-being. She explained that the assumptions made about her relationship with Bruce trapped her in years of distress. The controversy pushed her away from public life, and she avoided media attention whenever possible. Even so, the story never fully released its grip. Every time Bruce Lee's death was revisited in the news, Betty's name resurfaced alongside it. The media repeated the same questions, often ignoring the lack of proof behind the claims. Public doubt remained, fueled more by speculation than fact. While no wrongdoing was ever established, the association between Betty Ting Pei and Bruce Lee became one of the most discussed elements of his passing. Yet the controversy surrounding Betty was only part of a larger mystery. Questions about what truly caused Bruce Lee's death continued to grow louder over the years. The official explanation failed to quiet public curiosity, and alternative theories began to circulate. Bruce Lee's death on July 20, 1973, sent shockwaves around the world. At just 32 years old, he appeared unstoppable, defined by strength, speed, and discipline. The sudden nature of his collapse, combined with the unusual circumstances surrounding it, left a lasting sense of uncertainty. Decades later, people continue to question what truly ended the life of one of the most influential figures in martial arts history. The initial medical report concluded that Bruce Lee died from cerebral edema, a condition caused by swelling of the brain. Doctors determined that the swelling was likely triggered by a reaction to Iquagesic, a pain medication that combined aspirin with the tranquilizer meprobamate. Bruce had taken the pill at Betty Ting Pei's apartment to relieve a headache before lying down to rest. He never woke up. His death was officially classified as a rare and tragic reaction to the medication. Even at the time, the explanation raised doubts. Bruce was young, physically elite, and known for exceptional conditioning. Many struggled to understand how a common painkiller could lead to his sudden death. One important detail received little attention early on. 2 months before his passing, in May 1973, Bruce had collapsed while working on the set of Enter the Dragon. That incident followed a similar pattern. He complained of a headache, became disoriented, and lost consciousness. He was hospitalized and later recovered. Medical tests from that episode revealed that Bruce had also experienced brain swelling, closely resembling the condition found in July. Despite this alarming warning sign, there is no clear record showing that long-term medical monitoring or preventative measures were put in place after his recovery. This earlier collapse may have signaled a serious underlying issue, yet it appears to have been largely overlooked. The autopsy report from his death noted traces of a substance in his system, which fueled public curiosity and speculation. Some questioned whether drug use played a role in triggering the cerebral edema. Medical experts addressed these claims directly. British pathologist Donald Thierry, who assisted with the case, dismissed the idea that cannabis was responsible for Bruce's death. While such substances can affect brain activity, there is no reliable medical evidence linking cannabis alone to cerebral edema or sudden death in healthy adults. Even so, the mention of drugs, combined with the unusual setting of Bruce Lee's death, only deepened public suspicion. Rather than providing closure, the official findings left lingering doubts that continued to fuel debate and alternative theories for years to come. Speculation surrounding Bruce Lee's death continued to grow as new theories emerged over the years. One of the most discussed came from his biographer Matthew Polly in his 2018 book. Polly highlighted a surgical procedure Bruce underwent in 1972 to remove sweat glands from his underarms. The surgery was done for cosmetic reasons, allowing him to appear dry on camera, but some medical experts later questioned whether it carried serious risks. Sweating plays a vital role in regulating body temperature. Without full sweating capacity, Bruce's body may have struggled to cool itself, particularly in the intense heat and humidity of Hong Kong summers. Polly suggested that this impairment could have contributed to heat stroke. The symptoms linked to heat stroke, including headache, dizziness, and brain swelling, closely matched what Bruce experienced. On the day of his death, Bruce had been training and rehearsing heavily. He was physically active for hours, and the apartment he was in reportedly had no air conditioning. This theory gained traction because it pointed to a physical breakdown rather than drug-related causes, offering an explanation for cerebral edema without relying on medication as the primary trigger. Another explanation surfaced in 2022 when a group of Spanish kidney specialists proposed a different medical cause. They suggested that Bruce Lee may have died from overhydration. According to their findings, Bruce was known to consume large amounts of fluids throughout the day, especially during intense training sessions. Drinking excessive amounts of water in a short period can overwhelm the kidneys, leading to a condition known as hyponatremia. This causes dangerously low sodium levels in the body and can result in brain swelling. The specialists pointed to reports indicating that Bruce had consumed significant amounts of water, juice, and other liquids on the day he died. The simplicity of this theory stunned many. The idea that one of the world's most disciplined athletes could die from drinking too much water added another layer of tragedy to his story. When Bruce Lee died suddenly on July 20, 1973, the impact extended far beyond his fans. His wife, Linda Lee Cadwell, was only 28 years old. Overnight, she became a widow and a single parent. She was left to raise their two young children, Brandon, who was 8 at the time, and Shannon, who was just 4. While coping with overwhelming personal loss, Linda also faced relentless public attention. Media coverage intensified around both her and Betty Ting Pei, the actress whose apartment became permanently linked to Bruce Lee's final hours. Speculation surrounding Bruce Lee's death and his alleged relationship with Betty Ting Pei dominated newspapers and magazines for years. Linda Lee Cadwell, who had supported Bruce throughout his career and stood beside him through constant pressure, now faced a different battle. She had to shield her children from relentless public attention while helping them process the loss of their father under circumstances filled with confusion and controversy. Despite the emotional weight, Linda committed herself to preserving Bruce's legacy. She spoke openly about his life, his discipline, and his philosophy, ensuring that his ideas were remembered for more than the rumors attached to his death. For a time, it appeared the family might finally find stability, but fate had more hardship ahead. Bruce's son, Brandon Lee, grew up carrying the weight of his father's name. He trained in martial arts and gradually developed a passion for acting, choosing to carve out his own path rather than rely solely on his family legacy. After appearing in several smaller projects, Brandon began gaining wider attention in the early 1990s, particularly with his role in Showdown in Little Tokyo. His screen presence, physical ability, and natural charisma drew frequent comparisons to Bruce. By 1993, Brandon had secured the lead role in The Crow, a dark and stylized action film many believed would establish him as a major star. The project marked a turning point in his career and seemed to signal a bright future. Tragedy struck again on March 31, 1993. While filming a scene for The Crow, Brandon was fatally injured in an accident involving a prop gun that had been improperly prepared. The incident occurred during production, and despite emergency efforts, Brandon later died at the hospital. He was only 28 years old, the same age his mother had been when Bruce passed away. The loss devastated the Lee family. Brandon was laid to rest beside his father in Seattle, a painful reminder of history repeating itself. For many, his death felt like an echo of the tragedy that had taken Bruce decades earlier, reinforcing the sense that the family was marked by profound loss. Bruce's daughter, Shannon Lee, chose a different direction. Though she did not follow the same path in martial arts or acting early on, she eventually stepped into a public role dedicated to honoring her father's work. She became the head of the Bruce Lee Foundation, an organization focused on sharing Bruce's teachings on personal growth, martial arts philosophy, and self-expression. Shannon also moved into producing and helped revive one of Bruce's long-shelved ideas. In 2019, she co-produced the television series Warrior, a project based on a concept Bruce had originally developed decades earlier, bringing his vision to a new generation. The series found real success and introduced Bruce Lee's ideas to an entirely new generation. For many viewers, it reopened long-standing questions about his life and, most of all, his death. For more than 50 years, Bruce Lee's passing has confused fans, doctors, and researchers alike. The official cause, listed in 1973, was cerebral edema, meaning swelling of the brain. That explanation described what happened, but it never fully explained why. What caused the swelling? Why would a healthy, disciplined martial artist collapse so suddenly and never wake up? Over the decades, many theories attempted to answer those questions. Now, with more medical analysis and distance from the moment itself, a clearer picture has started to form. The truth is not dramatic or comforting. It points to multiple factors overlapping at the worst possible time. No single issue may have been deadly on its own. Together, they appear to have created a situation Bruce's body could not recover from. The first warning came just 2 months before his death. While filming Enter the Dragon, Bruce collapsed after complaining of a headache and dizziness. Medical tests showed brain swelling at that time as well. He recovered, but there is no strong record of long-term monitoring or preventative action afterward. Another key factor traces back to 1972, when Bruce underwent surgery to remove sweat glands from his underarms. The procedure was done for appearance on camera, but it may have limited his ability to regulate body temperature. In a hot and humid city like Hong Kong, that change could have placed constant strain on his system, especially during intense training or rehearsals. The most recent medical theory emerged in 2022. A team of Spanish doctors proposed that overhydration may have been the final trigger. Their research suggested Bruce likely suffered from hyponatremia, a condition that occurs when excessive fluid intake overwhelms the kidneys and dilutes sodium levels in the body. One of the main consequences of this imbalance is brain swelling. Bruce was known to consume large amounts of liquids throughout the day, including water, juice, and protein drinks. Combined with reduced cooling ability from sweat gland removal, possible dehydration from heat, and prior neurological stress, these elements may have formed a perfect storm. Taken together, this combination stands as the most likely explanation for what ultimately happened. Bruce Lee's earlier episode of brain swelling likely left his body more fragile than anyone realized. The removal of his sweat glands reduced his ability to cool himself, especially in intense heat. At the same time, his habit of consuming large amounts of fluids may have overwhelmed his body's ability to maintain balance. Together, these elements created conditions that led to fatal cerebral edema. In the end, Bruce Lee, celebrated for precision, discipline, and physical mastery, was not defeated by an opponent or a visible injury. There was no dramatic collapse in combat and no external blow that ended his life. Instead, the strain built quietly inside his body until it could no longer compensate. His death was not the result of battle. It came from internal stress, overheating, and imbalance, forces that worked silently and without warning. Bruce Lee did not fall in a fight. His body reached a limit it could not recover from, and he never regained consciousness. Bruce Lee's story did not end with answers that felt clean or satisfying. Even with medical theories lining up, many fans still struggle to accept how ordinary the causes may have been. A man who pushed human limits, who seemed almost untouchable, was ultimately vulnerable in the same way anyone else could be. That reality is uncomfortable, especially for those who grew up seeing Bruce as more than human. What makes his death linger in public memory is not just how it happened, but who he was when it happened. Bruce was in the middle of redefining cinema, martial arts, and cultural identity. He was building something larger than himself, and his momentum was undeniable. When that momentum stopped, it left a gap that no explanation could fully fill. The mystery surrounding his death became part of his legend, not because the science was impossible to understand, but because the timing felt cruel. Bruce Lee did not fade away. He was cut off mid-stride, leaving the world to imagine what else he might have become. Despite the tragedy, Bruce Lee's influence never weakened. His philosophy continued to spread through films, books, and generations of martial artists who adopted his belief in adaptability and self-expression. Jeet Kune Do became more than a method of fighting. It became a mindset built around questioning limits and rejecting rigid thinking. Bruce's impact also reached far beyond martial arts. He changed how Asian men were portrayed on screen, challenged stereotypes, and opened doors that had long been closed in Hollywood. Even decades after his death, his image still represents confidence, discipline, and independence. The truth about Bruce Lee is not found only in how he died, but in how he lived. He pushed himself relentlessly, questioned everything, and refused to accept boundaries placed on him by tradition or society. That drive is what made him great, and it is also what may have pushed his body too far. Bruce Lee remains a symbol of human potential and human limits, both existing at the same time. Bruce Lee's life was never about comfort or safety. It was about pressure, growth, and pushing past limits that most people never even approach. His death stripped away the myth of invincibility and left behind something more real. A reminder that even the strongest bodies have breaking points, and even legends are human. What makes Bruce endure is not the mystery alone. It is the mindset he left behind. Question everything. Keep what works. Drop what does not. That way of thinking still hits hard today, in fighting, in art, and in everyday life. Bruce Lee was not frozen in time. His ideas keep moving because they were never meant to stand still. The saga does not end with how he died. It continues every time someone studies his philosophy instead of just his punches. Every time someone chooses progress over tradition for tradition's sake. That is the real legacy. If you want more stories that dig beneath the surface, challenge the official versions, and break down film legends with honesty and edge, keep riding with Retro Cinephile. This is where cinema history gets re-examined, stripped raw, and told straight. If you want the truth Hollywood never wanted out there, the drama, the secrets, the cracks in the spotlight, you're in the right place. Smash like, hit subscribe, drop your thoughts below, and share this with someone who loves classic cinema. Retro Cinephile, where the past talks loud.